glad you said something, Chairman, because I was beginning to think we had done something wrong here.
No, we were just waiting. We're ready.
Okay, thank you, sir. I'll go back on mute.
I'd like to call the meeting to order. Mrs. Werter, would you please call the roll?
Chairman Everett Roy.
Present.
Vice Chair Barbara Canales.
Present?
Board members Michael Hunter.
Here.
Joe McComb is not here. Carrie Robertson Meyer.
Here.
Ben Molina.
Present.
Tom Schmidt.
Here.
Carol Scott.
Here.
Greg Smith.
Here.
Carolyn Vaughn. Steve Banta. Okay, Mr. Banta absent. Roland Barrera. Paulette Guajardo.
Present.
Gil Hernandez.
Here.
Okay, we do have a quorum of the board present.
Okay. Thank you. I'd like to welcome everyone. First, there is public comment, and Mrs. Werter, we have no public comments received.
That's right.
Okay. Is there anyone here that would have any additional public comment? Seeing that there's no public comment, I would like to next entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Chairman, I do have a request in the minutes. So on September the 22nd at that meeting, if you recall, when I did the roll, Judge Canales did not respond, but I know one of the board members said that she was in fact present, that they saw her on the video conference. In addition, towards the end of the meeting, when the motion was made, we had some action on the La Vista Point item. When I called for the vote on that, Judge Canales was not able to respond either because of some mic problems I think she was having. So she's requested that we show her as present and also that she be recorded as an aye vote on that motion. So the minutes reflect that, her request. I just want to bring that before the body, before the board to let you know and ensure that you're okay with that you approve that.
Yes, I don't have any problem with that. Procedurally, we don't have to take a vote for that, but we just have, if anybody objects to that, we can.
Correct, yeah.
So if anybody objects to adding, to make sure that we counted Judge Canales' vote and her presence. Okay, so we should.
So the minutes can stand. Also,
let the minutes reflect that.
There was also Ms. Meyer noted a spelling error or just an error in identification on page 6, so that it's not that doesn't require an amendment either. I just want to let you know that we are going to make that change. So thank you for pointing that out.
And that was the Bay Vista Point, should have been La Vista Point, because Bay Vista is another place in Uptown Corpus, so we don't want that to be confusion. It's on page 6.
Okay, thank you.
And I had one more, if I can say it. Under G2, in the middle of this big boldface part, where it starts board members, about in the middle, there's one note that says, here it is, the drainage problem on North Beach is due to elevation. A canal will not solve the drainage problem. I think what was said, and I think it was Member Smith maybe, that said a canal alone will not solve the drainage problem. That's kind of different than a canal will not solve the drainage problem, because first they said the elevation is what needs to, it has to be both elevation and a canal. I think they were saying the canal alone. You can't just dig a canal without elevating.
I don't know if I said, if I was the one, but that reflects my thoughts, Carrie, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the minutes.
With
with those amendments?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'll second.
There's a second? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. There is no financial report today. So the next item that we have is a presentation, and it's an introduction for Dr. Ray Perryman and his scope of work as contracted by the Nueces County for the economic development impact on North Beach. So at this moment, I'd like to go ahead and welcome Dr. Ray Perryman.
Thank you. And Chair, if I might, this is Barbara Canales. I was going to have the pleasure of introducing Dr. Perriman so that I could, for those members that aren't familiar with him, we had arranged that. Would it be all right to proceed at this time?
I could not hear her. Yes.
Okay, someone's having, is my audio okay?
If you could turn it up a little bit, that would be great.
I just did. Let's see if that helps.
That's a lot better. Thank you.
I've never been accused of being soft-spoken, but I'm going to really enjoy the moment here. Board members, it's a privilege today to be able to introduce to you Dr. Ray Perriman. Often when we have presentations, some people don't need introduction, and he certainly doesn't need an introduction because he is world-renowned. But every once in a while, a person of such notoriety really deserves it so that you can understand what a privilege it is and how important it is that we've been able to access his talents for this important project. And so he's the president and CEO of the Perriman Group, and that's an economic research team, firm or analysis firm. They're based out of Waco, Texas, Sikkim Bears. He is an alumni of Baylor University, where he received a BS in mathematics. But he also holds a doctorate, a PhD in economics from Rice University, and so many other honorary doctorates. I'm most proud that after doing the rounds of all the great academic institutions, he has finally landed sensibly at the University of Texas, where he's a senior research fellow at the IC Squared Institute, as he is a distinguished professor of economics. Look, the bottom line is that pretty much whoever is in the Global 25, Fortune 100, all the large tech firms, anybody who's anybody in the banking institutions, they all rely on Dr. Ray Perriman. Some of my favorite things that have been said about him that really sets the stage as to why you should perk up and listen up is that Texas Monthly called him the most quoted man in Texas. You are no doubt a world-class scholar, but my favorite thing that's ever been said about you, Dr. Perriman, is that you're a preeminent economist, but you are a barbecue connoisseur. And that was the Dallas Morning News. So you'll find Dr. Perriman as approachable as he is, honest and quite frankly, impressive. You need to listen to him because governors and presidents do as well. What we have been able to accomplish is Nueces County, along with the Port of Corpus Christi, seeks to identify an economic impact for Census Tracts 63 and 64. This absolutely overlays much of our Tirz geographic boundaries, and we cannot seek the types of grants that we know we need for improvements, whether it's drainage or elevation, whether it's a project called a canal or a breakwater, coastal resiliency. All of it depends upon an economic impact analysis. Even the Corps of Engineers relies on a BCA, a benefit to cost analysis. So this is why Nueces County so boldly sought out the best in the world. And it is with great humility that I enjoy talking to him so darn much. I can't tell you what a privilege it is that John Breyer, head of our Development Commission and a good friend of Dr. Perriman, asked if I could set the stage this morning. And so I know his time is limited, so we'll yield. And Chairman, thank you for making it a real presentation. His qualifications merits it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Judge Canales, and it's a pleasure to be here with you this morning and to talk a little bit about this project that I've been asked to become involved in. As she noted, we are looking at the two census tracts, which in essence encompass the North Beach area and the old courthouse, to take a look at what the economic impact would be if some of these major investments are made, which kind of forms a sort of an entryway into Corpus Christi. And I must say I have a great affinity for Corpus Christi. I met my wife on a flight to Corpus Christi, and had my first meal with her in Corpus Christi. And so I have a great affinity there. And also, I once wrote a book at what was then the Hershey Hotel in Corpus Christi one weekend with a dictaphone. So I have looking out at the water. So I have a great affinity for your area, and have had the privilege of being there many times over the years. And I'm pleased that Water Street's still there because that was where that meal took place. But in any case, we're looking at, obviously, there's been a number of different discussions of what might go on, and I certainly can't help you with the drainage problem someone mentioned earlier, the elevations or that sort of thing. But what we are trying to do is look at some realistic scenarios, which John is helping work with other people to help us put together, and say, if we do these things, this is what the effects on the economy will be. Not only the direct effects of building and it being there, but also some of the follow-on effects beyond that, how it would induce tourism, those kinds of things, and other things that might help the overall development of the area. Obviously, you have a very exciting area. I live at this point in my life, although I work in Waco, I live in the Permian Basin, and I've seen what's going on out there, and what's possibly been interrupted, as so many things have by this pandemic, but what will continue to go on out there in the future. And basically, you're the other end of the pipeline. And the United States is going to be a huge producer of energy for the world for the coming decades, and a great deal of it in some form, whether it's crude or compressed gas or petrochemicals or refined products, is going to be coming through the port of Corpus Christi, and it's a very exciting time for you. I think the future is very bright. And so what we'll be doing again is looking at these and going beyond the normal, what's the multiplier of building something, and what's the multiplier of somebody coming to town spending money, and saying, really looking hard at what can this mean for the area, what can it do in terms of stimulating additional development, collateral development, those types of things, and really giving you a new sort of gateway into the city. And I know the plans are not finalized yet, and they won't be finalized when we do the study. That's fine. We'll be looking at, if you do it this way, this is what the impact will be, and that sort of thing. We're not advocates or anything of that nature. We're simply do the analysis. We have a very good track record of people using our information in order to get things approved and get grants done at the federal level and that sort of thing. A number of your large the LNG plant, some of the other petrochemical plants, a lot of the government approvals that were needed, we did the economics behind those. So we know the area well. We have a lot of experience down there. I've been doing forecasts for the area since 1982, I think. So in any case, that's what we're doing, and we're looking forward to the opportunity to do that, to be a part of what's a very exciting new development to me, and opportunity for Corpus Christi and Nueces County, and we look forward to being a part of that. And I'd be happy to try to answer any questions at this point. I don't think we get into a lot of technical methodology. If you want me to, I'll be happy to. And I'm happy to answer any of your questions or assist in any other way that I can at this point in time. Today, our main purpose is to introduce this to you and let you know that what we're doing, why we're doing it, and how excited we are about the fact that it's going forward.
Are there any questions for Dr. Perryman? Well, Doctor, we appreciate you joining us this morning, and we look forward to your continued research and looking into North Beach, and hear from you in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. My pleasure. Appreciate the work that all of you do.
All right. Next, we have a discussion on tax increment reinvestment zone, Tirz, and the details of North Beach, Tirz 4.
Morning, board members and chairman. Heather Hurlbert, Director of Finance. Can please go ahead and advance to the first slide. Okay, we wanted to go ahead and bring back to the board, just kind of go back and review the mechanics of a Tirz, and then specifically how Tirz number 4 operates, and looking at the project plan and the reimbursements that have already been approved. So a tax increment financing zone is a tool that allows governments to finance needed structural improvements and enhance infrastructure in a designated area. These improvement costs are repaid as that area grows. So you have a base year when you set your TERS. You have a dollar amount or a tax amount that's being produced and paid in. And then as development occurs, tax values increase, and then a portion from 1% to 100% of that tax by the taxing entities is then put back into the zone and used a lot of times for reimbursements of development. It can also be used to pay for debt service on bonds, for anything that's designated by the project and financing plan within that area. So as I said, the taxing entities determine the level of participation in the zone, and so it can be a percentage of all the tax collected. It can be capped at a dollar amount, and it can be all or part of a tax rate. Next slide, please. So the idea behind TIFs or TERS, you'll hear them talked about different ways. A TIF is tax increment financing. A TERS is a tax increment refinancing zone. You also hear them called TIZs, or tax increment zones. So they're all referring to the same basic thing. So the idea behind it, like I said, is that you put development in, your property values increase, you create a tax increment, and then the government subsidizes the development either upfront by reimbursement or through the issuance of bonds. Next slide, please. So again, this just illustrates that increment piece of it. You have the normal growth that occurs just within the zone, but then as you develop it, that increment grows more rapidly. And then at the end of the TIF term, all of that assessed value, it belongs to the taxing entities. So whenever the TERS ends, 100% of that tax that is being created by that increment goes to the prospective taxing entities. Next slide, please. So specifically about TERS number 4. So we've talked a lot about the development of the Fraser Hotel, but TERS number 4 has a whole list of projects that are allowable underneath the project and financing plan. And so these include infrastructure projects, maintenance projects, the incentives, which the Fraser Hotel Incentive Agreement falls under, which is a project-specific development agreement, and then the administrative cost. So through the project and financing plan, you lay out your maximum amounts that can be spent within each section in those projects. So within the project and financing plan, there's up to almost $20 million allowable for infrastructure projects, $2.1 million that's allowable for maintenance projects, $17.8 million that's allowable for the incentives, and then up to $2.2 million for administrative costs. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, the Fraser Hotel project is a project-specific incentive agreement. And under this agreement, the incentive payments begin the first year taxes are levied after the construction is completed and the developer receives a certificate of occupancy. So this development must be completed and ready to be occupied before the incentive payments begin. The annual property taxes are collected from all entities in the TERS. So this TERS applies to all taxpayers on within the TERS boundaries. And then once the hotel is completed, the annual incentive payment to the developer is an amount equal to 95% of the property taxes collected for both the Fraser Hotel and La Vista Point. So there has been some discussion on the fact that we're just paying back those taxes that are being paid in. But in actuality, the developer is a taxpayer, so all taxpayer money is collected within the zone, and then the incentive payment that's being paid to the developer is equal to 95% of the taxes that the developer has paid in. And then within this hotel project, the incentive payments will end at the earlier of either the reimbursement of total project costs of $7.8 million, the TERS expires, or 18 years after the incentive payments begin. So at the lesser of either of any of those three, the incentive payments do end. So that does conclude my presentation, and I am available for any questions.
Thank you. Board Member Carrie Myers?
Hi, thank you for that clarification. It was made it a lot more clear for me, because especially on how our discussions in the past have revolved around how the money that the developer would get back would be taxpayer money, taxpayer dollars. So I know that you're saying that the money that, say, this developer pays into the Tirz goes into a big pot, which makes it taxpayer dollars. But then that same amount or less that they paid in comes right back to them. So just to make sure that people understand that it's not over and above what they've paid. It's actually less than what they have actually paid into this fund that they would get back after they've done everything to help bring the neighborhood up. So I'm glad this third bullet point is in here, where it says the amount that they get back is equal to the property taxes collected for both of their properties. That's the big thing that I was requesting that everyone is clear on, because just saying taxpayer dollars, it insinuates that they're getting more than they're actually paying, and they're not. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Seeing that there's no other questions, I'd like to go ahead and go to our next item, which is a discussion on flooding of the turnaround on North Beach.
Good morning, Board. My name is Sarah Munoz. I'm an Assistant Director in Public Works. With me today, I also have Gabriel Nahosa, another Assistant Director in Public Works. So the item before you today is a discussion on the turnaround flooding on North Beach. Next slide, please. So just a quick recap. I know everyone here is pretty familiar with the area, but this area is owned and maintained by TxDOT. Between the two bridges, as you can see in this area, there is an existing 18-inch pipe and an inlet. And in speaking with TxDOT, they believe this pipe may have collapsed. Next slide, please. So in this picture, if you can kind of see the cone in the left-hand picture, that's the general area of where the existing 18-inch pipe is. Next slide, please. So Public Works has discussed the preliminary details of TxDOT's upcoming routine maintenance project in the area of the turnaround. So TxDOT's goal for this project is to increase the capacity and alleviate the ponding of water in the roadway. So as of right now, TxDOT's still drafting these plans, which is why they're not here today. They're still very preliminary plans. And they hope to be done with them and let for construction in December. So since there's going to be digging in this area, there's going to be environmental permitting required. And because of that, the timeline may change a little bit. But as it's scheduled, the project is expected to begin construction in the spring of 2021. So the preliminary designs that they're looking at include the installation of 3 pipes in this area, and the next slide will show those locations. And right now, they're actually evaluating a couple of different treatments, which could include roadway grates that will drain some of the water, or inlets that could also drain the water. In speaking with TxDOT, they were willing to come back to the board and provide an update once their plans are complete. I put December, but your next meeting I think might be in January, so they were willing to come back and provide you that update themselves. Next slide, please. Again, this next slide is something that, I'll wait for, it's up there, is something that I just kind of put together really quickly to kind of illustrate where those 3 pipe locations would be. Again, they're evaluating the pipe size, how many pipes, but in general, the idea is to have 3 locations instead of 1 to help drain water off of that roadway. That concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions that you might have.
I have a question.
Board Member Guajardo?
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Sarah, so how long, how did it come about, or how long ago has the pipe, I guess, been dysfunctional? I mean, because that water has always been.
Correct. I don't have the answer to that, but I could definitely check with TxDOT. As you can see, it's probably been a little while. They weren't able to get down and assess it because it's been underwater, so they looked at their as-built plans to determine that it was an 18-inch pipe with an inlet. But again, since it's been underwater, they haven't been able to actually assess it.
Wow, okay, great.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Is TxDOT in the interim? is there a possibility, because I know that the city, I've seen some areas that we've been working on, and we actually have had those pumps that are working nonstop until they fix the pipe, and then, go on with life. Is it possible that they could actually provide some type of pumping situation in the interim until this gets fixed? Because I was just down there last week, and my concern is, like any concern when you have high water, that it's a little deceiving. And I saw people that were trying to, they were thinking about going through there, which isn't very wise. So I wonder if they're willing to do something in the interim to pump that water out.
It's definitely a question we can ask them.
Okay. Were there any more questions? Yes, Board Member Smith.
Chairman.
I'm sorry. Board Member Smith?
Sarah, thank you. Peter, thank you. So, as Paulette said, this has been going around since forever. So, we know this is TxDOT's issue, but again, thank you all for giving TxDOT that bit of push to take care of this long-range problem that definitely impacted the harbors and soon-to-be Vista Point. I appreciate your work and bird dogging this.
Thank you, sir.
Board Member Myers?
Okay, because I'm from there and have a lot of local knowledge about this, I wanted to explain one thing about it, that geographically how this works. Okay, so if you're at Beach Avenue and you're heading northbound on the frontage road and you decide not to get on the highway and you're going north and you get to this turnaround that's flooded, a lot of times the way to go to the right towards that RV park, that's also flooded.
Right.
And it's not just with rainwater, it's with salt water, and it's usually about that deep. I don't know, a foot, at least. And so if you don't want to drive through salt water, you have no other alternatives other than turn around and go the opposite way against oncoming traffic, which I've done.
Yeah.
Okay, I got in the shoulder of the road, far left, put my blinkers on, and went backwards towards the Valero, because I wasn't willing to basically ruin the undercarriage of my car, right? And there wasn't any traffic, so I got through it. But this is a huge public safety issue. And we have been talking to TxDOT, North Beach Community Association, the residents of the harbors, for years to get this done. And we've been talking to the city for years about this huge problem. So I'm so glad to see the city apparently talking to TxDOT and getting them to move forwards with this. And in the background, how it calls it a routine maintenance project, no. There's nothing routine about this, because routine means that you do it over and over and over again, right? On a regular basis, no. TxDOT has never dealt with this issue. The city has never pressured them to deal with this issue that affects North Beach residents on a daily basis. My friends who have kids on the other side, sometimes they drive the opposite way on the southbound frontage road when the water's too high, facing oncoming traffic. It's dangerous. So this is not just kind of, oh, isn't this great? This is a public safety crisis that I'm so glad is happening. That was the first thing, just to put it in context of how important this is. The second thing is, when you're talking about, in the very first slide, you kind of went through it pretty quickly. You said 18-inch pipes. That's water pipe, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When the city redid North Beach water system in 2016, they did it in-house, and so the water department people who, dressed in blue come out. They took about a year and a half to replace all the water pipes in North Beach, and I followed it through the project leader. The last thing they were going to do was connect the new water lines on the east side of the highway with the water lines on the west side of the highway. That was called phase 4 of the project. So I said, is phase 4 happening? Are you doing phase 4? And the answer from the water department came back as, we decided not to do phase 4, that we think it's okay the way it is. And you know what? That was because we were telling them the whole time, there's a water main under there that's leaking. It's not just salt water, there's a water main. They would never admit that was what was happening, and then they just left it. And this has been 2 more years of flooding, right? So, okay, so there's that we have this background of.
Ms. Meyer, I just wanted to clarify, the pipe is a stormwater pipe, not a water
It's not a
utility.
water pipe?
No, it should be a stormwater pipe.
Okay. Well, just so you know that
Okay.
background about Phase
Okay.
3 and Phase 4, check into that and see, because there is a city water main that goes through there. Okay. I'm glad to hear you talking about stormwater. Are you talking about culverts that will go underneath the road and run north and south? That's what it looked like on your picture, right?
Yes, ma'am. In our discussions with TxDOT, that's their preliminary design.
Okay. Did they say anything about elevating the road bed?
No, because due to the clearance, that bridge is a 12-foot, 1-foot-inch clearance. Elevating the roadway would just make it even smaller.
Okay.
Or, yeah.
What we have suggested to TxDOT in the past is do what TxDOT itself did at Levante Park, which is another Corpus Christi area at the north end of the city. They have it's a one-way feeder road that goes underneath the highway there, Highway I-37. One road is low for trucks. The other road right beside it is high. And that's what we've said over and over that TxDOT could do right there. Keep that low road for trucks that need the clearance. Make a high road right beside it for cars and put culverts under it. That is a fix that TxDOT itself has done in our city in a very similar situation. We've never gotten anywhere with TxDOT about that. So hopefully now that TxDOT's talking to the city and this is all happening, which I'm super happy about, a little frustrated with the timeline, but happy, please bring that to the table if you can.
Yes, ma'am. We have discussed with TxDOT the two-way traffic on the frontage road, and it's something that they've told us that they're going to evaluate after the harbor bridge is constructed, because the off-ramp, the southbound off-ramp would have to be closed to do so.
Yeah.
So they're looking at it, and that's about the update
But I was
could
talking
give.
about two.
No, I
the
understand,
same
but
way.
earlier
Just
you
saying.
mentioned oncoming traffic opposing each other on the frontage road.
Yeah, yeah.
That, I just wanted to recap. that
Yeah, and they would
conversation.
have to close down one exit.
Correct.
Which they probably don't want to do, and maybe people don't want to do. I don't know, that's a further discussion.
Yes.
You also said there were two options, drains or something. I didn't hear you. You said they kind of like they've got two options they're going to do.
Yes, so again, it's still preliminary.
Okay.
But a couple of options they discussed with us were in roadway grates that span the whole roadway width, and inlets, the traditional inlets that you see water coming into.
And so in December, we're going to get another a presentation from them.
Well, they have offered to come. I know your meeting might be in January, so it would probably be around that time.
Great. Well, thank you, Ms. Munoz, for your help with this. And I believe that the city coming to TxDOT is what made this happen. So thank you for everyone who did that in the city and got them on board with helping our neighborhood.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Yes, Board Member Hernandez.
Yeah, looking at the big picture here in terms of this, I know we're addressing this issue right there, but in terms of, are we coordinating with TxDOT as well? I believe LAN is doing some work for us on this as well to kind of look at the big picture, make sure that all the drainage is kind of working together, so the TxDOT's not doing something and we're doing something different.
Again, this is I know Ms. Meyer brought it out as a routine maintenance contract, and that was just nomenclature. TxDOT, it's a smaller scale in their terms. I do believe the consultant has requested drainage information from the Harbor Bridge consultant. And in that sense, they are working together to understand the drainage situation.
Okay, so are we quarterbacking this in terms of making sure that we have the big picture between TxDOT and our own consultants?
Yes, sir. I believe Engineering Services Project Manager is coordinating that.
Okay, and they're discussing with you since you're responsible for stormwater now?
Yes, sir. Our department is, yes.
Okay, and I wanted to ask a question to Carrie Meyer on, you had mentioned you had a water main leak. Is that still an issue?
Well, you have to get a refractometer and go down there and test the water, whether it's salty or not salty, to determine whether there's a leak, or look at what kind of plants are growing there. And cattails have been growing there in the past, and that is typically mostly freshwater cattails. And so we've always been talking to the city about thinking that was fresh water, and some of it, And also, if you look above where the highway comes over, there's these things called scuppers, which are holes in the highway that allow rainwater from the highway to pour down, and so that the roadway up above isn't flooding in a rainstorm. Well, those scuppers are right there. They empty right there in that flooded area. So every time it rains, it exacerbates the problem because of where the scuppers are located. It's just, it's the perfect storm, you know?
Yeah.
There's a lot of things going on there. So to answer your question, Mr. Hernandez, I'm not sure. We don't know, but we've always suspected that. And when they didn't replace that 18-inch water main, I think it was an 18-inch they were going to put in there for Phase 4, we suspected, there's still a problem with it, and they're working with TxDOT to figure it out, but they're just not, coming to the public with that.
Okay, that might be something for our water department, if you can
follow up.
address that with them. I know we have a water conservation plan where we're addressing leakage within our system. And so if there's an issue there, we need to address it. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, Barbara Canales for the county. I just want to reiterate how important I think it is to make certain that we are working together with TxDOT. I would suggest that we propose a GIM meeting and ask them which agencies would be brought in for the environmental piece of it. If you want to keep this project timely, you need an interagency meeting that we often do for all our coastal projects. And I would suggest that you ask a member of the Tirz to represent, and so that way we can, follow up at the proximate meeting with some sort of a status update. But that's what's going to be needed if you want to keep this project moving. It's exciting. It's timely. It's well done. Great that the city has initiated, but the devil is always in the details. And I think that what's going to be required is that you find out which agencies, from a regulatory point of view, will be needed to receive this environmental clearance. And once you do, and you bring everybody inside a GIM meeting, then you can advance your project. And I think that is something that you should reach out immediately to Valente, our TxDOT district engineer. And I'm certain he would be very glad to participate in something like that. Otherwise, you leave it in the hands of the fates, and that's not a good place to leave it in. So if you really, it's a report that it's happening is great. A report that it's actually in progress and has received environmental clearance is better. And those are my comments. And to that effort, the county has hired CEI, a environmental group, and for permitting purposes for some of our projects that we are working jointly with the city on. And if we can be of assistance, they're already procured in a manner that's acceptable to the county. So they are on standby if they can be of assistance here.
Thank you. Are there any other questions at this time? Seeing that there's no other questions, thank you very much for your presentation. Okay, next we have future agenda items. Do we have any future agenda items?
Yeah, I've got an item.
Yes.
Councilman Hernandez mentioned the LAN study that was commissioned several months ago. My understanding was that we might have some results of that either in November or December. Do we not have a meeting scheduled until January? I think it would be really helpful for the Tirz board to be able to see the results of that study as soon as it's finished.
Chairman, I can address that.
Okay.
So the city council authorized that $500,000 contract with LAN, and we're planning a presentation to city council in December. Their preliminary report is nearing completion, and they're on schedule to have the report done by December. We plan in one of the council meetings in December to present those findings. And just as a refresh, the study is answering two questions. One, what is the navigable canal? What is it? What's the design? How do you get in? How do you get out? And then secondly, will it work to alleviate the drainage issue on North Beach? And will it work as a navigable canal? So those two questions will be answered in those findings. So the plan is to bring that forth to City Council. And I think it's the second meeting in December. So the next TERS meeting is scheduled based on the policy that the TERS approved, this TERS, in January. So we could bring that report finding to that first meeting in January to this board.
So we could bring the, kind of a recap of that meeting in January. I don't think, just out of curiosity, probably in January, we're not going to go back to the norm in terms of public attendance in our council meetings, correct?
You're probably correct, Councilman.
Yeah, so I do believe everybody then has the opportunity, though, to be able to watch that council meeting the second week in December.
Right. There'll be a report, a written report as well that will be published.
And then we could follow up in January and make sure that that's on the item, or the agenda item for January. I do think it's important and to be able to come back and discuss that, the findings. We'll have a little bit better light. So I'm certainly okay with that. Are there any other questions?
Well, for new business, Mr. Chairman, Barbara Canales for the county, we would like to report that we have a completed study by Maldonado and Burkett, who concentrated their efforts on North Beach, Harbor Bridge opening day, and developments regarding opening day, and of course, projecting all the way through 2035. Their recommendations and mitigation measures will be summarized in a report that will be presented to Nueces County within the next, by the end of this month. And so I'm just advising the TERS that this is an important study, just like Dr. Perriman's economic study that affects the TERS geographic boundary. And I would consider it probably not only right, but important to bring before the TERS as well. And at your we will submit to you for your consideration of placing on the agenda in the month of December.
In January. Will
In
that
January.
report be made to the public prior to January? Would we be able to review that report prior?
Sure. We're not going to wait till January. We're going to have this, I'm certain, brought before, our next meeting is November 4th at the county. So I'm guessing that that most likely will be the day that we see this presentation, is November 4th. And of course, we'll send it over to you. But I think it all ties together. And we need to be mindful that as public servants, there's no rest for the weary. We don't do holidays. We don't do, because issues get a little tricky. We can't be allowing these delays to miss time or misfire. Everything is happening in a sequence, and it has to be looked at from a holistic manner. So if you're getting your land report, you're going to want to make sure that they get this traffic report as soon as possible. So I want to submit it to you and suggest that no matter what it takes, make sure that these important pieces are being, being shared, and we don't need to be delaying. And the same thing goes for Dr. Perriman's economic impact. We're all trying to get ready for round 2 of GLO's CDBG mitigation studies. And it takes a tremendous amount of effort. And if we're going to waste November and December, we will not at the county. We will not be wasting November and December. So I understand what the issues are, but I also know that time is of the essence for all of these projects. And the minute you lose a gap of 30 or 60 days, it's not healthy for the project. So I will get it to you and hope that it sparks. It doesn't have to, you can bring it up through a council meeting. There's many, many ways that you can bring it up, but I just want the TERS board to know that because we've now finished the traffic study, because we've initiated the economic impact study, because we've put forth our Texas Water Development Board a grant for the master drainage study, we are now going to be moving forward with our CDBG mitigation focus. And we need a little help. We cannot be lone rangering over there forever. So we're happy to do it, but we're better together. That's the bottom line. That's my message today, is we're better together. And I'm trying each and every TERS meeting to bring forth that which we have accomplished in the 30 days before. And And now, as I say, I report the Maldonado Burkett, and let's hope that we can get it to LAN timely.
Thank you. Board Member Smith?
Thank you. This really isn't a future agenda item, but thank you, Chairman Roy, for your leadership and with this TERS, this new TERS. I've enjoyed working with you, and I appreciate all your dedication to community service, and look forward to some time in the future working with you again.
Thank you.
I would like to request that we consider a special meeting for November or December to discuss. I would like to see TxDOT's plans for the underpass. I mean, the project there on the north end is, nearing, I don't know if it's nearing completion, but it's really going gangbusters. The Lighthouse project, and this flooding is, negatively impacting that project as well as everyone who lives there. And I mean, I'm just really eager to hear what TxDOT is planning for that. This is our only way of hearing that, is that I know of through this board. And also what Judge Canales was just saying about their traffic study. Traffic in the new bridge is really important, and why we want to wait until the 2021 to find out, it seems like a long time to me.
Thank you. Are there any other future agenda items? Seeing that there's no other future agenda items, this meeting's adjourned. Thank you.